Hello and welcome everyone to part 8 of In My Shadow, the Atsumu angst series. It is Halloween, or in other words, my favorite holiday of the entire year. To all those of you who celebrate it, I hope you have a great spooky season, and to everyone who doesn't, I hope you have a great time in general. Now, since it's spooky season, of course we're continuing this spooky series. I hope you will like it. Enjoy, and let's go! Suna burned. There was no other way to describe the pain setting his side ablaze. As soon as he had positioned himself between Atsumu and the woman, she had lodged the blade straight into his abdomen. He could hardly breathe. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. He had to move. He forced himself to move. The map. He needed to remember the map. When he studied it to find Atsumu on the bridge, he took note of a police precinct nearby. He just needed to reach it. This whole time he had guided them as close as possible, as subtly as possible. Now they needed to make a run for it, fast. That murderous girl had no intention of sparing their lives. No matter what twisted fantasy had driven her to commit these crimes, they didn't thwart her killing intent. But they were close. They could make it. The pain would be over soon. Just move. He heard the projectile slicing the air next to him without seeing it. The sharp pain he expected didn't come. It missed him, but not Atsumu. The blonde let out a blood-curdling scream Suna wasn't even sure he was aware of. His hand around his arm tightened, and to the total surprise, he proceeded. Warmth soaked his jacket where Atsumu touched him, and it turned his stomach. But if he could somehow move on, so could Suna. By now, the lights of the station illuminated the red on the clothes, and he could feel his heart fill with relief as he finally pressed himself against the door and it opened. He didn't think he had words to describe the relief he felt the moment the first gush of warm air embraced him. The few seconds of distraction from pushing to move, just one more step, just one step closer, was enough to have him collapse. At once, the world around him picked up speed while he seemed to fall slowly. His breathing finally stopped being so hectic, though his heart still hammered wildly in his chest. A pair of hands reached for him as the first officer approached them. Outside. She is outside. He could barely string together a coherent sentence, but the officer seemed to understand. Commands filled the air, and the chaos increased. His eyes searched for Atsumu next to him. The lights flickered from all sides, blinding. He coughed. His hand, ice cold to the touch, searched for the wound in his stomach, but he couldn't reach it. He felt so sluggish. The silhouettes around him blurred, but he was pretty sure two of the officers helped Atsumu to his feet and supported him as they led him inside. He looked awful. Although blurry, Suna acknowledged his face was almost completely covered in red. He knew that the people around him tried to talk to him, but his tongue felt like lead in his mouth. Someone was ordered to call an ambulance, he believed. Another brought a red backpack of sorts, and then his shirt was lifted to inspect the wound. He felt something being tied around his middle tightly, though his consciousness was slowly fading. The last thing he noticed was a ray of blue and red lights, and he wondered if that was already the ambulance or police cars being dispatched. He was dead. His brother was dead. The words echoed in Osamu's mind on repeat. He didn't know what to do. His fingers felt suddenly cold and numb. When he reached to take his phone in hand, sitting on the railing, it didn't feel like he was actually touching it. Atsumu's was placed right beside his, with these stupid and horrible fox stickers plastered all over. Hot tears burned into his skin as he picked it up as well. He put his in his pocket while offering the other to Kita, standing right behind him. The other looked so pale, his skin was almost transparent. His hands were shaking as he accepted it. His movements were similarly uncertain as Osamu's, like he had lost all feelings as well. He didn't scream or sob. He was almost perfectly still as he stared at it. His eyes were wide, and within them raged a storm his body refused to convey, paralyzed by shock. The scream one might expect came from behind them, where Sakusa held onto the railing and screamed into the wind to the river below. Aaron beside him had one hand twisted into his shirt as though he feared Sakusa would jump as well if he let go. His eyes were fixated on the shoes next to the railing. Atsumu's, undeniably. Just as undeniable as the fact that a jump from this bridge would without doubt be deadly. It had lost him. Atsumu, the beloved, a brother and friend, was gone. But this makes no sense. Lin, where's Lin? Upon arriving here, Komori had already knelt at the beginning of the bridge, scarcely holding himself together, and calling out for Suna in a weak, quiet voice. He mumbled nonsense, refusing to understand what had happened. He cried, his eyes darting all over the place, searching. Toya, it is over. No, where's Lin? Don't you see, Samu? It makes no sense. A shaky, desperate smile stretched his lips upwards in what looked like a grimace that shattered as the grief became too overwhelming once more. Tears flooded his face, and he aimlessly searched the surroundings again. He can't be. It makes no sense. Osamu didn't know how he could still walk. He didn't know how he managed to make it so far as to reach his boyfriend and lay a hand on his shoulder, but he did. We found the letters, Toya. There's no use. The words felt empty. He didn't sound like himself. He didn't feel like himself. He was empty. Those big, round eyes full of tears stared up at him, and suddenly, he too couldn't hold it anymore. He tried not to feel it. It hurt too much. He didn't feel like he could survive this. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. It hurt. He was his brother, his twin. They were meant to be together forever. He never had spent a day without Atsumu. He was always there. And now he just accepted that he suddenly wasn't anymore. How was he supposed to look in the mirror after this? He would be anywhere he was as he should, but not. No, suddenly his other half, a reflection of himself, would be just that, a reflection. Never would he talk back to him again or do something stupid Asumi could scold him for. Never again would he get to see him on the court doing what he loved most, smiling brighter than the studio lights and drinking in all the attention. Never again would he be able to make him his favorite food or see him smile when he ate it. Never again would he see his eyes light up when he walked into his shop. Never again would he see his brother. He was gone. Still images and still voicemails and videos were all that was left of him. Pain. So much pain that proved how wrong he had been. Everyone here loved him so much. None of them wanted him gone. Why did he do it? He vaguely acknowledged that he screamed, that he collapsed into Komori's arms and clung to his hoodie so tightly it stretched and threatened to rip. And Komori pulled him into his arms, allowed him to hide his face against his neck and soak the soft fabric with his tears. He couldn't endure this. How could anyone expect him to move on from this, to live when his brother wouldn't? He wanted to hide away in Komori's arms forever, praying that once he woke up, this would have all just been a terrible nightmare. It couldn't be true. They worked through this years back. He couldn't be dead. The cold seeped from the pavement into his bones from below, but he didn't care. He couldn't care less if he were to perish here on the spot. If that could take his pain away, he might just embrace it. The only thing reminding him that he had ties still attached to this world he'd never dare sever when he truly thought about it was Komori's force-beating heart, like a hummingbird caged by his ribs. When he turned his gaze to the railing again, Kita still hadn't moved, but Sakusa had collapsed into Aaron's arms, who looked seconds away from following him into despair. Would Suna and Komori be the same? If he followed his brother into death, would they be equally inconsolable, fractured, beyond repair? Would Sakusa, Aaron, and Kita find the strength to go on after this? How long would it take? Months? Years? Or even decades? How long until he'd be able to move on and live again? It seemed utterly impossible without Atsumu. No, he couldn't do this without him. Atsumu, I need you. A gauze after the next was pressed to his face, but he bled through all of them. The red liquid poured out as if his supply was endless, though the dizziness was proof that was very much finite. At least, he caught a couple of glimpses of his surroundings. Along with the paramedics exclaiming that he was lucky his eyes hadn't been harmed directly, he finally allowed himself to be relieved. They were on their way to the hospital, and by now that things slowly began to make sense around him again, he was much more concerned for Suna. The metal blocker had been strapped to the stretcher and looked awfully pale. Guilt gnawed at him that he hadn't even noticed the other was injured during their escape, and now he was unconscious. The only thing keeping him from overthinking the whole situation was his own still very loopy state of consciousness induced by the blood loss. He had narrowly understood that a few police officers were accompanying them to the hospital to ensure their safety, while most of the rest were dispatched to search the aggressor. He tried to tell them what he knew, but his mouth wouldn't comply with forming words, and the paramedics had ushered him into the vehicle before he knew it. As sirens rang loud through the night and sent sharp pains through his head, the paramedic before him tried to keep up the one-sided conversation to make sure he stayed awake. They seemed nice, had cool hair. It was so blue. He must have said it out loud somehow, because they laughed and thanked him for the compliment. Upon arriving at the hospital, Suna was rushed inside first, and Atsumu felt a surge of panic when he heard the word surgery being tossed around. But he had no time to focus on that. He was next. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you liked it, please leave a like because it would really help this channel out. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss out on the next parts. Also, you might have guessed it already, but yes, this was the part where I cried while writing it. And yes, my voice is still strained. I'm trying my best here. Now, yes, there are 4 more parts to come. And yes, the spooky part isn't entirely over, but who said that the spooky season ended at the 1st of November? That's stupid. Spooky season is a lifestyle. Special thanks to my nerdy neckos as always. You helped this channel so much. Here are my other social media. They're most active on Chatty and here on YouTube. So check out other videos in the end card if you want to do me a huge favor. It helps with the algorithm. And I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day. Enjoy Halloween. Happy Halloween.
Get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you want to be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.